Hello guys, in the lecture today I will try very quickly to help you recall the object-oriented programming in PHP. My assumption about the lections is that the people attended the course actually are familiar with PHP and object-oriented PHP, but I just want to make sure. That's why very quickly introduce again the concepts and show a little bit snippets of the code, help you to recall that, and after that we'll move to a Zen framework where we are using only object-oriented programming. So object-oriented programming has four distinct important parts: inheritance, abstraction, encapsulation, and polymorphism. If we look at one language, formal language, for example PHP, and we can meet this requirement somehow with the tools of this language, then we can say that the language is object-oriented. So PHP has inheritance. Actually, let me zoom that. I'll do it this way so everybody can see it. Inheritance. PHP allows us to do inheritance with the word extends. We can extend superclasses which are previously actually defined. Abstraction. PHP allows us to create abstract classes and also abstract functions, to have abstract functions. Encapsulation. We can use the scope special words private and private, public, and protected, just to protect our data. And polymorphism. This term also, it's a little bit harder to explain in PHP, but if you follow the link you will see very good example where you can see how polymorphism is done in PHP. Also, let me give you a definition about the polymorphism. Let me start to zoom it so I can zoom it. Okay, just for a second. So here we go. Polymorphism describes a pattern in object-oriented programming in which classes have different functionality while sharing a common interface. So the interfaces are very important for the polymorphism. This is an elegant way to avoid the conditional logic. Yeah. So let's move further. Why do we need object-oriented programming? The goal of the object-oriented programming is mainly reuse. Actually, initially when the object-oriented programming was created, the first language was Simula. We try to modify the object from our real world using the programming tools. After that, the purpose of the object-oriented programming actually shifted from its initial purpose, and mostly we use it for reuse right now, and gives the structure of our programs. In the procedural way of thinking and creating applications, we are writing functions, and to reuse them, after that we put them in the file. For example, we can use even only one file, and when we want to reuse, we just call this file, require once this file, and call the functions. Here we have to, of course this is if we want, PHP doesn't deny that, we have to put each class in a separate file, load the files, instantiate the class, and use the methods and the properties. So what is a class? Here it is, how the classes look in PHP. Oops, maybe cannot open this. Let me zoom out again a little bit. So this is how the class looks like. We use the keyword class, we say the name of the class, and here we put the code. Good practice is not to use the closing angle bracket question mark. This is good practice, because usually if we put that and after this closing we put enter, or everything after this closing tag, whatever we put is gonna be served back by the server and sent to the browser. So we don't want that. So this is about the class. This is just This is how we create the class, and this is how we instantiate the class. From the classes, which are the blueprints of the real objects which we want, of course not all of them are real objects, but classes are the blueprints of the objects. They can have constructor, destructor, they have methods and properties. Let me add this. Methods and properties. Once the class is created, we can create an instance of this object using the blueprint, the class, by saying new, with the keyword new. So this is how we will instantiate this class. Require once human PHP. After that we'll say Stoyan equals new human. And after that we can call a method if there are methods. For example, say hello. This is the way how we do that in PHP with this arrow. Okay, that's about the classes and their objects. As I said, the object is an instance of a class. We can have as many objects, instances of a given class as we want. Methods. Methods are also called member functions. This is how they are defined. Before we were looking at how to create a function in PHP. Here, if we enclose the function, the body of the function and the function signature in a class, curly brackets, it becomes a method of this class. Here it is, the method. They of course keywords which determine the scope. Public means that this method actually can be accessed from anyone who instantiates the class and has the object. And the function, the method, is nothing different from a standard PHP function. So after that we use again the keyword function, say. If the function calls say, send the parameter again, and eventually send arguments when we call it. Accessing the parent class. If we want to access the functions which are underneath, which lie beneath the method which is defined in the superclass, we have to use parent keyword. Properties. Those are called also member variables. They're not different from the variables which we very well know in PHP, but they have to be defined in the body of the class. So let me show that. Access properties. Here we go. Public name, and here I'm initializing this variable property which is called name. So name is called property of the class human. Also it's called a member variable in other languages. In PHP it's called property. I heard of course this term member variable as well here in PHP used. Yeah. Scope. So with the three words private, protected and public, we can define the scope of the methods and the properties. As you can see here in the methods, we use the keyword public to describe that this function will be accessible when we have an instance of this object human from everywhere, from outside. The same with the properties. Let me go back. I'm using the word public just to declare that the name will be accessible from outside. So somebody who instantiates the class and has the object can set or get this property. Constants. Here it is how they look. The most important thing is just to remember that the convention is to use the capital letters. So main constant, this is how it should look like, and it can be accessed by double columns. This is the important thing to remember here. Okay, this is a static way to access something in the method, in the object, in the class actually, because if we have a static methods, they can be accessed only from the class. We don't have to instantiate an object and after that access it. Okay, so let's talk about the statics. We could have also, let me zoom it again, I just want to make sure that it's very well seen. So static, let's see what the static what the static method looks like and what it means. Static method allows us actually to call a functions, member functions or methods without instantiating an object for this class. This is how it is defined. Static function says something, for example, and this is how we call it. Echo human column say something. Notice this, we don't instantiate object in order to call a static method. There are also a static properties as well, and they're called on the same way, almost the same way. Just notice the dollar sign, which is up front. This is how we set it, and also cannot be initialized in the beginning in the class. This is typical for the static methods and properties. Also, we cannot use this in these functions, in these methods. We have to use eventually self. They also have a scope. Abstract classes. This is the next topic I want to discuss right now. Remember above I was talking about the abstraction. So this is the abstraction, how it's done in PHP. You use the keyword abstract, and after that you define the class. This way you declare that this class is abstract. Let me first show you how it's done, and after that we'll discuss some aspects of the abstract classes. Notice something very important. The abstract methods. The abstract methods doesn't have a body, and they start with the keyword abstract. This is how it's used. Class A extends my abstract class, and here we have to define the body here in the class which extends the abstract class. Just before I forgot something, let me look at the mind map. So those are the requirements. Must have at least one abstract method, which I just showed it to you. An abstract method is the method which could have parameters but no body. We cannot directly instantiate object from this abstract class. We have to inherit first the abstract class, and after that instantiate object from this class in order to use the methods which eventually are not abstract and they are defined in the abstract class. And the third thing is no abstract properties. There is no abstract properties, so you cannot create a member variable or a property with the keyword abstract. Notice this. Only functions can be abstract. We cannot, for example, type here something like For some reason my typing tool, here we go. We cannot say abstract protected my variable. This is not allowed. We're not allowed to do that. Okay. Interfaces, they're extremely important. Interfaces allow us, they are highway to the polymorphism, which allows us to do magical things, almost. So, how the interfaces are done in PHP, I'm gonna show you. Again, a small snippet. You always can go to the mind map and copy the snippets or follow the links which I have put there. The mind map is created especially to be used with these videos, so please use the mind map. That's why it's public. So you can copy snippets and try it yourself. We have to use the keyword interface, and what I usually do is I'm using the word interface after the name of the interface. Some people do this. They usually indicate that this interface by putting a I up front. My, let's say. I'm not doing this. This is my way to do it, and I think it's in the Zend world. This is a naming standard, so I'm continuing using this way. So public function get param, and as you can see, this function also doesn't have a body, and this is how you implement the interface. Multiple interfaces can be implemented by a single class. The only contract done between the interface and the class which inherits the interface is that this class which implements the interface must define the bodies of the functions. Okay? So the interfaces determine the methods which should be used in the classes which implements these interfaces. So let's say we're creating a program and we need an adapter. We have a class, and this class should connect, let's say, to the file system. That's maybe not a very good example, but let's continue with that. So, or let's call it not only a file system, whatever. We need data. So what we can do is we can have a standard interface about all objects which will implement the interface. The interface which will allow us to get data from something, from the file system, from the database, or whatever source. It just came to my mind. So we could have an interface which requires explicitly to have a method which is called, for example, getData. Now, each class for a different device should implement the same interface. For example, we're getting the data from the file, no problem. We'll create a class which will implement the interface, the data interface. After that, we can get the data from a database, no problem. This class also should inherit the interface, should implement the interface data. And if we have other sources for data, we should do the same. So when the reader, actually the class which reads the data, gets instantiated, it gets an instance of one of these classes, from file, reading from file, from database, or whatever source you can think of. When this class has the instance, when this object, actually reader, has the object, it knows that by the contract there is a method which is called getData, no matter what. So if it calls such method from this object, nothing will go wrong and everything will work. So this is the main reason for the interfaces. Actually, it defines the interfaces. PHP can implement multiple interfaces, as I said, if not methods with the same names, if there are no methods with the same names. We have to use a keyword interface to define the interface, and we have to use implements when we want to create a class which implements the interface. Methods. The methods can be only public, and the methods are without body. There shouldn't be even one method which has a body in the interface. That's it. It's not like abstract classes. Make sure there are well-known methods coming from the interface. It's just a note which I put it there, just to emphasize the fact that you have to know the interface in order to communicate with the object which is created from a class implementing certain interface. Overriding. I will show you what the overriding is. Oops. Let's go back. Somehow. I hope everything is right. Okay, so overriding. Let's say we have a class A and a function foo. So class B extends class A and defines again the very same function foo. Here I notice an error and I'm gonna fix it right away. I forgot to put the name, the keyword function, because in PHP we have to say there is a function. This is a function. Public function. Public function. Okay, so now I'm gonna show it again. So class A, we have a class A, and we have a class B which extends class A. In class A we have a function foo, and in class B we also have a function B. So in fact class B overrides the function foo. Okay, let me read my notes to see what else I wanted to say here. Overriding is only pertinent to derived classes where the parent class has defined a method and the derived class wishes to override that method. That's it. So we can have methods with different with the same names in this chain of inheritance, but if we override a method in one of the levels, in one of the classes, and we instantiate object of this class, so its method will be called, not the parent one, unless we explicitly call a parent into this method. So overriding and overloading. Overloading. Let me explain this. The overloading in PHP is done through the magical methods. See, I feel a little bit ashamed just to explain you again the very well known things, but I just want to make sure that all my students actually know this this theory before we move forward. I just want to make sure I will recall them all these things. Okay, so class human, public function set, for example, name, value. In object-oriented programming, overloading is defining functions that have similar signatures yet have different parameters. In PHP, you can only overload methods using the magic method call. This is very typical for PHP. For example, if you try to assign a value to an unexisting parameter in PHP, that's totally acceptable. So let me write that as example. Let's say, for example, my object equals new human. Yeah, PHP is also tolerating not putting the round brackets, like calling a function. That's perfectly legal in PHP. So if I say here my object and we call a property which doesn't exist, for example name, and we set it to my name, I want to show you that, that's perfectly legal, because this method is called. If we do echo name value, we'll see this as a name and Stoyan as a value. So we have something similar if we call a method which doesn't exist. Before the PHP give up, interpreter to give up, it is gonna call as a last resort a call method underscore underscore call to see if in call we can handle this problem. Okay, this is the overloading. Autoloading, it presented since it presented in PHP 5.2, and it's just wonderful because we can call classes without repeating always require once or include or require. The difference between require and include is that the require once will cause the critical exception and the application will stop, and include will just issue a warning and continue the execution. So autoload, how it's done, here it is, the code snippet. Oh, actually I copied something from a real project. Defining the root path, you can see how that happens. Adding vendor to the include path, this folder, and here we go. We say SPL autoload register, and here I'm demonstrating a callback. This function, which actually doesn't have a name, and it's sent as a argument to autoload register, is called closure. And this is what it does: require once, string replace array. And my assumption is that we are working with namespaces in PHP 5.3 or higher version. Directory separator, and we call the class PHP, because this is what is sent to the class parameter when this function is called. So this is how we autoload. And the namespaces introduced in PHP 5.3, how they look. This idea actually exists for a very long time in Java, for example. We also in PHP Zend especially try to use namespaces in a little bit strange way by typing, for example, Zend underscore controller front, let's say. So all the classes were defined before and can be defined, of course, now in the global namespace. But in order not to have collisions, everybody should make sure that his name, the name of his classes, is unique, which was difficult before. And that's why we started to use this artificial way to make sure that our namespaces are unique. Now, by introducing the namespaces, we don't have to do this anymore. So here it is how it looks. This snippet is taken directly from the PHP.net, this magical website where you can go and actually see everything what you need there. So by the keyword namespace, you define my name. So this is something like a folder. Think about namespaces like folders you create, and your classes, functions, and your constants are put in this folder instead of just be dumped in the root of your hard drive. This concept is very well known, as I said, in the file system, for example. And once the namespace is defined, after that you can call it this way. Because we are right now currently in this namespace, my name, we can call directly by calling my class, exactly the same way as if you are in the directory, in the folder. and you want to open a file. You don't have to put the full name, the full path to the file. You just open it. You also can say the full path, of course. My name, my class. This is a global space. This is another keyword which you can use for the namespaces. Namespace, and another magical constant here, namespace. So that's it. Just to I have one topic more. Use when you're in a certain namespace, to avoid calling and putting the full paths to the classes which eventually you're gonna use, we can use the keyword use. So I'm gonna show you how. So right now we're this actually example is taken from Z application controller. So we're in the namespace application controller, right? Now, if we don't put these expressions, use Zend MVC controller, abstract action controller, and view model, and we want to extend this class, then what we have to do, if we don't have this, then we have to put the entire path. So instead of just abstract action controller, we have to put here Zend, exactly as you see it. We have to type here Zend MVC controller, and after that mention the name. And instead of doing this, we can use the keyword use, and after that put the path. This allows us to be free and use the short names. So that's it for today, folks. I hope that this quick recall actually helped you again to recall the PHP and the object-oriented part of the PHP. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Bye for now.